Hello Year 10, I hope you're all okay and that you've enjoyed getting back into school and seeing your friends. So thank you very much for all those of you who have sent in your answers to the questions that I set about costume and your set. I will get you some feedback to those next time, so thank you very much. This week I'd like you to look at lighting. This is a really important design aspect of theatre that can create lots of different emotions, locations, and can highlight various different elements of the stage. You have to make sure that you are totally secure with your set design, that it's simple, it makes sense, and you could actually do it for real. If you haven't got your set design really done, you need to do that before you get onto the lighting. Okay, so your set ideas might fall around these kind of images. The one at the bottom is the one I tend to usually use as my kind of example. You've got a real difference between the rich side and the poor side. You've got different entrance and exits that can be used, so the archway. You've got a higher level in front of the projection, so where Mickey and Eddie, for example, can meet, or Mickey and Linda can be when they're looking out over the city. And then it gives you lots of different kind of scope for the various other scenes. You might have some other elements on yours, thinking about how the inside of the houses are done as well. Okay, so that's just recapping on what your set design might look like. So now you have to think about how you're going to light it and how you're going to light various different scenes to have maximum impact. Okay, so we have lots of different lighting terms. So just want you to have a look through this and then I'll go through them. So just have a couple of a minute or so just to read through these. Okay, so I'll give you an example of a gobo in a minute, but this is like a bit of metal that's got a stencil in it, and then when you shine the light through, the shadow is cast onto the stage. This is a really good one for things like prison bars. So you have a piece of metal with some lines on it, so when the light comes through it, you get lines on the stage, and I'll show you that in a minute. But it's a really good thing to do forests, because you can have a gobo that looks like forest leaves cut out. So when you shine a green light through it, you'll get sort of dappled effect on the stage to show that maybe you're in a forest. Backlight, that's light coming up from behind the actors, so it can cause good shadows. Gels, these are the coloured filters that go in front of light. So all lights are white, but then you put a piece of coloured like acetate in front of it, and therefore you would flood the stage with different colours. So red, for example, which could be a good one for the end scene. A floodlight, when the whole stage is then just lit, so like a normal day scene could be floodlit across the stage. Spotlight, so one angle and highlights one particular person. So this might be really good for when the narrator is on, you might spotlight them so that the audience knows who to pay attention to. Crossfade means that light's up on one side of the stage and down on the other, and then when one goes down, the other one goes up, so you're switching the light from one side to the other. So you could do that when you do a split stage. If it's Mrs. Johnson's house, and then lights down on that side, lights up on Mrs. Lyon's house. Projections, these are things that can be projected onto a wall, onto glass. So if I wanted the city of Liverpool skyline, I could have a projection of that on the back wall. It gives me, the audience, the location. So these are some examples. You can see in the top, you've got a projection of some night sky, it looks quite dismal. You've got a really good spotlight happening on the twins dying in the middle, and the other characters in a bit more shadow. Here is the gobo, where the prison bars can be seen. So that's Mickey in prison. You'll notice that they haven't built a whole prison cell as a staging because it's used in a small scene, so there's no point in having a big elaborate set. A cyclorama, so in the bottom picture, the back wall is blue, but that's actually white and it's lit with a blue light. So a cyclorama is a white back wall that you can light with lots of different colours. And this is a scene where all the children are playing and it's happy, hence why you've got lots of coloured light. So these two show some a different viewpoint from the scenes, some lighting from above to really highlight those characters. And this one, the bottom one, has sort of side lights of yellow, showing that it's like street lamps and it's a bit dark and could be quite gloomy. Again, some more different ideas. You've got the skyline in the background, so that's a projection. And the area that is lit is literally in the middle of the stage, which just is flooded with light. So there's lots of different ideas going on. So what I'd like you to do is I would like you to fill out the next two slides, or the next slide. I want you to focus on the key scenes within the play, what lighting effect you would use and why. Okay. So for example, I've done the first two for you. So opening and on throughout the play, I'd have a projection on the back wall of the Liverpool skyline. A blue colour to represent the sky, but the backdrop would change for different scenes, okay? But there will be the Liverpool skyline throughout the entire play. And the reason being is that the play is set in Liverpool. The audience can then put it into context, but the colour would change subtly for the event. So when they're outside and it's lovely, it might be just like a normal day, but towards the end it might get slightly darker and redder when the boys die at the end. So when the narrator comes on and the narrator speaks, he just has a spotlight. And my narrator is going to come in from various different places. Sometimes he might come out through Mrs. Johnson's front door. He might come up on the balcony. He might come out through the archway. He's going to appear in different places. So when he does, the spotlight goes onto the narrator and the audience can then focus purely on that one character. He is the storyteller. He fills in the gaps of knowledge. So that's some ideas, and I would like you to do the same for these 5 key scenes. Okay, so the pact that Mrs. Lyons makes with Mrs. Johnson. So this is done in the sitting room, so I've given you a quick idea, but what would be the lighting effect? You can also have lighting effects that are table lamps that characters will put on as well, so it doesn't have to be just the normal stage lights. So if you decided that in Mrs. Lyons' sitting room there was a standard lamp, you might have that as that she turns that on. That's absolutely fine. The scene where Mickey and Eddie meet for the first time, so that's outside in the wasteland, so you might have green light, you might have just normal white everyday light. When Mrs. Johnson gives Eddie the locket, is that going to be done inside Mrs. Johnson's house or outside the front door? Are you going to have one side lit and the other side not? What happens in the scene just before that? Because you might have to crossfade from one side to the other. When he's in jail, so even if you want to use a gobo to show the prison bars, absolutely fine. This is not about reinventing the wheel. And then the final scene, you're going to have a spotlight, it's going to be red, whatever it might be, okay? You can write straight onto the PowerPoint, I'll attach that, or you could do this on paper so that you've got a nice grid of what lighting you would have and where and the reason behind that. From this, if I gave you a question that was, how would you use lighting in 2 key scenes within the play you've studied, you should then be able to write an answer for that, okay? So use the internet as well, look at lots of different things in relation to lighting, get some inspiration, but don't make things too complicated. The key thing is why you would have that lighting, okay? What are you trying to communicate to the audience? What is the emotion that you're trying to get across, okay? So once you've done that, you can then submit that, and I will have a look, and then the next bit of work will probably be looking at a question in relation to it. Okay, if you have any questions, just give me a comment. I'll show my homework. So there we go, Year 10. Enjoy, and I look forward to seeing what your creative ideas are.